Okay, so we have this plate of the Mini-Me's, and it was shot on a Blackmagic cinema camera. I've put in the template a camera with the same settings as the actual camera, the same image aperture and focal length as the actual camera, but it's also on the slate here and in the metadata of the files as well. What we want to do is figure out the projection of it, which, as you can see, this is the camera itself. This is the field of view that the camera would have. So that's the same field of view of the guys. And then we need to position them so that we have the station point of the camera in the same place as it was in the actual scene. Now, because we're pointing down on them, this is a situation where if we use a background plate of a different scale, but we put the camera in the same relative station point, a station point that was at like a human eye level, that will make these guys seem a lot smaller. So it's all about matching the field of view, not necessarily anything else. We need to have the same focal length and we need to create a projection, but we don't have to have the camera in literally the same place. We only have to have it at the same angle, and the field of view will take care of the rest. So let's start wiring this up because it's a little easier to look at than it is to talk about. It's a lot like building a tile world. We start with a card, and we need to have the same field of view and horizontal aperture. So I'm going to copy this horizontal aperture from our camera prototype here, and I'm going to copy our focal length just by dragging it into the focal. And because cards know a little bit about perspective, they have just enough information to know about perspective. You'll see when I push it out along the Z here, it's matching the frustum of the camera exactly. Now, right now I don't have these guys attached to it just yet, but there we go. Now I have them attached. And the camera was only in there for reference. We really don't need it. Now that we have the card set up, we can manipulate the card itself in order to do everything else we need to do. So let's make sure that we have the card selected. And I want to rotate this card into place. So I'm holding down the control key and rotating it down. Now, in order to really get this any further along, we have to look at them from a camera that is meant to be the station point of our taking camera, the camera we want to rephotograph this with. To make this a little bit easier, let's use the panorama that we have here. So we'll look at it here. It's a very high resolution latlong panorama, 20K resolution. So this should give us enough to be able to render like an HD background behind these guys, even if we take a little slice of it that's about the same size. To get started, we need to wrap it on a ball here, though. So, and I'm also going to reformat this a little bit too, because if we attach it as is, it'll actually be mirrored because it'll wrap around the outside of the ball. So we'll set this to scale, and then we'll flop this, which will mirror the panorama. So now when we wrap it on the ball, it won't be reversed. It may not matter in this case, but if there's any text or anything visible, it would be reversed. So we want to fix that up. And I'll just connect this to a sphere. Now, right now the resolution of the sphere is not very high. If we look at it here, we might consider turning up the resolution just a little bit. So I'm going to turn this to 64, and I'm going to turn the columns to 128. There, now we have a slightly higher resolution ball, and let's scale it up uniformly so that we can do it either in the radius slider here when we initially build it, or we can use uniform scale. I'm just going to use the radius here to do it. I'll type in 10 and then keep tapping this up. There we go. So now our guys are a little outside it. We can maybe go up just a little bit more, 120. And now we'll drop down a camera so that we can look at this from inside the sphere. Now, one important thing is once we put the camera in, we don't want to move it. We only want to rotate it. So just remember that. That's one big caveat of when you do this. I'm going to rename this Cam Main. And I'm going to change the focal length a little, make it a little bit wider angle here. 32, let's say. Now let's look through that camera, Cam Main, and I'm going to hold down Control and click the camera icon here, which will allow us to navigate from the camera. So down Alt and the right mouse to rotate. And let me go a little wider on the lens just so we can kind of see what we're doing a little bit better. Here we go. Now we might need to pull a key for these guys just so we can see what we're doing a little bit better, but let's try roughing it in now just without keying it. I'm going to turn this down to about 30 something degrees, let's say. That's what I remember we had on set. There we go. Accidentally moved the camera. You only want to rotate the camera. And you want to do this until the perspective seems to match. Now, the card itself is handling the projection or keeping the frustum of the projection camera in the right place. And then I'm changing the field of view by changing the field of view of this Cam Main, the photographing camera. But as long as they don't seem like they're falling forward or falling back, you know, somewhere around here, 35, 37 degrees, we'll leave that until we pull a mat for these guys. But there you have it. Now we've got a, let's turn off selectability for both the sphere and the card, and then that'll get rid of all the lines. There we go. Now we got some little mini guys in our big warehouse here. So that'll have to do. If we had better notes on the exact angle, we could have put that in here. But we'll just tweak this by eye later once we get the map pulled.